think Quez Watkins has earned at the very least a roster spot, but does he have a legitimate chance to start, assuming, Jalen Rager or Travis Fulgham don't step up here?
Well, he should, but I kind of said that a little bit yesterday. I don't think he does. I'd like to see him get more first team reps.
Eagles football. We're going to talk about Eagles football and the practice version and getting ready for the exhibition season. We got you covered for the next 2 hours here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. I'm Jody McDonald. Jeff Kerr is my co-host today. But as you can see on your screen, John McMullen is going to start the show with us today as a reporter. Well, that's what he does every single day. Every once in a while, he's got to suck it up and host with me. J-Mac, how you doing this morning?
Doing well. Gearing up for a hot one. The heat is back, my friends.
It is. Go ahead, Jeff.
It actually feels like summer now, J-Mac.
Yeah, it does. We've gotten kind of lucky. I think that luck ends today.
It's going to be hot today, and then it's going to be hot on Thursday as well when they take on the Steelers. I just checked the weather. Kickoff, it's still going to be north of 90 degrees. The good thing they've got a 90-man roster. I take it we'll see all 90 of them. Well, there's a couple guys that are hurt, but those that are physically capable of playing, will they try and spread it out as evenly as possible? Because if not, you could have somebody passing out due to dehydration on the sidelines.
Yeah, they're going to be very cautious. I mean, you look at the way they've handled this camp just as a whole, and it's been, a little bit less than seasonable, as I mentioned, for most of it. They're being very cautious, typically with injuries, but, that will expand to heat. And obviously, you do have the 90-man roster. So this is not a regular season game where you only have 47 that can go out there and has to play essentially a whole game. So, yeah, I mean, look, those third stringers, get ready, man. Get those electrolytes because you're going to be out there.
John, Jody and I were discussing how much we think Jalen Hurts is going to play on Thursday. How long do you think he's going to play, and do you think Nick Sirianni will answer that if it's asked?
I hope he answers it. He tends to give us a little more information than Doug Peterson. I mean, he might have not even gotten to that yet. I would imagine he's got to play a quarter. I mean, this is a young quarterback with 4 career NFL starts who hasn't exactly been ripping it up on a daily basis. I mean, this guy needs reps, and this guy needs live reps against somebody else, against a different defense that's trying to accomplish some different things. And I think it's important he plays a little bit. I will say that.
How many of those reps that he gets for a quarter or however long it's going to be, slightly more, slightly less, are going to include RPOs? We know what Jalen Hurts' strong suits are, and a big part of his game should be his ability to pull it down and run it, or a designated play in which he runs it. You think we're going to see more than just 1 or 2 RPOs in the time that Hurts is on the field on Thursday night?
Well, I will say I think that's going to be a really, really big part of the Eagles' offense. I mean, a really big part. So, it's kind of the frame. Do you want to show it or do you want to hide it? Do you want to put it out there for everybody to see? But, that kind of stuff is overrated. I'd rather try to get the execution down because everybody knows what they're going to do in this league. And if anything, it's more apparent now. And I wrote about this on Sports Illustrated, and Nick kind of admitted it. I mean, that's what he does well. He's not going to sit back in the pocket and put his back foot in the ground and move the football consistently down the field. You have to take advantage of what he does well, and that's getting, this intriguing part of his skill set, the ability to make plays, off-schedule stuff, all that kind of stuff. It's difficult for coaches to lean on that because there's rarely any consistency. You can't just go out and say, play sandlot football. But I think similar to what we said about Zach Ertz and 12 personnel versus 11 personnel, Nick is coming to the grips that, okay, if he's here, I got to play him because he's one of my best players in reference to Zach Ertz. in the case of Jalen Hurts, it's like, okay, he's not a great consistent thrower. Let's take advantage of what he does well. And by the way, I think that's one of the positives of Nick Sirianni. That's kind of what we were sold when you go back to Indianapolis and they had the three different quarterbacks and Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, three different offenses. They molded the offense around the strengths of the player. I think they're going to do that here as well.
Sirianni said Sunday night that he doesn't have an extensive background in RPOs as you would like, but it seems like a lot of the coaches he hired are deep in that. Kevin Patullo, Jason Michael he mentioned. I think Brian Johnson was the other. I mean, how extensive of a background do those guys have?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin was at Texas A&M, so he's got a reference from the college level. Brian obviously was at Florida, so he's got a terrific understanding of it. And Jason had Marcus Mariota, so he had to essentially build an offense around him in Tennessee when he was a coordinator. And then he always brings up Tom Manning when he was out in Indianapolis as well. He's a Iowa State offensive coordinator. So yeah, he's gotten, and it was Frank Reich because obviously Frank came off the Eagles Super Bowl success, and really they changed the entire offense when Carson Wentz went down because Nick Foles was very effective, not in the running part of it, but just understanding sort of those fake zone reads and how to manipulate something he did well. He wanted, that one quick read, and Frank kind of encouraged him to get up to speed on that part of football. And I've always thought it's interesting. Football is one of the few industries in the world where innovation trickles up. It doesn't trickle down. And in other words, it really starts at the high school level. Forget about college. And then it goes to college, and then it finally arrives in the NFL. And you see it with these RPO offenses. It might not be as aesthetic as you would like. I always say, I want to see Bill Walsh, West Coast plays. I want to see, but you don't have the time to prepare for that to begin with anymore. You can't practice. You can't do anything. So you got to simplify things. And as much as Chip Kelly became a punchline in his ending here in Philadelphia and what happened in San Francisco, and he's not exactly beating the world down at UCLA, and he was ahead of the curve. He really was. Couldn't adjust, but he was ahead of the curve as far as where the NFL was going.
Certain things, yes. Other things, not so much, and as stubborn as the day is long. But we're not here to judge Chip Kelly. I don't know that we've ever touched on this, John, or since Nick Sirianni has certainly taken over, and it becomes a different question with every passing day. Has he mentioned whether he does or doesn't still talk to Frank Reich? I know when he got hired, he talked about what Frank meant to him and Frank helping him out and telling him what to do in his Eagle interview and what he learned from Frank and like. But are they still conversing? They both have a pretty full plate of getting their own personal teams ready. But has the coach mentioned whether he talks to his former boss anymore in Indianapolis?
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not like Frank cut him off. Frank is very proud of him. Yeah, I mean, they text all the time. Ultimately, you do get busy this time of year, and things differ. But no, he's a huge sounding board for Nick Sirianni. I imagine not only when it comes to offensive football in the NFL, but also how to handle Philadelphia. That's been a big part of it as well. But yeah, those two remain very, very close. And that's how this league is. I mean, you saw Doug Peterson the other day. Everybody lost their mind when he showed up at Chicago camp with the Bears colors on. That's just about Matt Nagy. They've been close for years and years and years. You develop these relationships, and Nick Sirianni, yeah, he knows what Frank Reich did for him, and he's probably the first guy he will go to for advice.
I think Quez Watkins has earned at the very least a roster spot, but does he have a legitimate chance to start, assuming, Jalen Rager or Travis Fulgham don't step up here?
Well, he should, but I kind of said that a little bit yesterday. I don't think he does. I'd like to see him get more first team reps to see what he can do, because I do think people, he's been very impressive, but generally he's playing second team and third team reps. Now there's been some injuries. He's been with the first team on occasion, but not a ton. I think that's what you do. He's shown so much against the backups. You give him more reps with the first team and see what he can do with them. And a lot of that comes to the point, mainly Jalen, to be honest. Jalen Rager hasn't had a good camp. Travis Fulgham's been okay. And we know Devontae hasn't been out there. There's plenty of opportunities to get him snaps with the first team. You got a head coach who constantly talks about competition. Look, I mean, they're not seizing the job, these receivers. So other guys should have an opportunity. We talk about cornerback and Zach McPherson. Well, Darius Slay and Steven Nelson have seized those jobs. I mean, they're the starters. They played well. The receivers, you can't say that about. So, yeah, I think Quez should have an opportunity. If you ask me, will he get an opportunity? I don't think so.
There are a couple of positions, and receiver Watkins is compared to Rager being one of them. The other, of course, is left tackle with Mailata and Dillard. You could even stretch and say there's another one or two on the team where it would seem to be a decision by the head coach putting the best player out there, the guy that's going to help him win on that given week, and what would look best for the organization, whether they invested a draft pick in a player and or gave a player a significant contract and like. And sometimes those things get at loggerheads and they don't necessarily mesh and match up. There's going to be at least one during the season where we go, all right, Sirianni took a stand here. And Sirianni said, no, this guy is earning the time. That's why I'm putting him out there. I don't care where he's drafted. I don't care what you're playing him. I'm just evaluating football. Which position or which player do you think that'll be that Sirianni will take his first stand on that, no, I got to play this guy because he's just flat out better in my estimation?
Well, I think if he's here, Zach Ertz, I think he's going to play a lot. So that's sort of up to Howie Roseman. So, I mean, if you don't want him to play, you better trade him. So you better Billy Bean him. You better get him out of the building because he's going to play if he's here. And really, he's outplayed Dallas Goedert. So, I mean, he's going to play. Forget about the receivers. It's going to be interesting at left tackle because most people think Jordan Mailata is lapping Andre Dillard. I don't think it's quite that big of a blowout, but it's more because not because Andre has played well, but I think people kind of overblow, Jordan Mailata. And poor Jordan, he's Walter Jones, he's Orlando Pace, he's already getting fitted for the gold jacket. So I don't think that one's as big. And we just brought up Quez Watkins. That would be a big one because Jalen Rager's a first-round pick from 2020. And if he goes out there and says, you know what, Quez Watkins better, I'm going to play Quez Watkins. I mean, that's one you could say, okay, that's Nick Sirianni putting his foot down.
Let me follow up there a second, Jeff. You mentioned that in your estimation, in practices so far, all 11 of them, that Ertz has actually been better than Dallas Goedert. We know Ertz did not have a good year last year. He missed some time. There was some injury involved there. But even when he was out there on the field, he didn't look like Zach Ertz, the 100 and change catch guy that we know that he can be. Why do you think Ertz had as bad a year as he did last year, John?
Well, I think part of it was the quarterback. I think part of it was he was upset, and he probably didn't handle it well. He took it on the field. He was a little bit disappointed about how he felt the organization treated him, and then finally have the injury. So I think it was sort of, as it always is in these types of situations, sort of a cocktail of different things. Now he knows, I think, this is it, one way or the other. He's either going to play out his contract and leave, or they're going to trade him. So I think he's come to grips with that. He's healthy, obviously, so that helps. And then, presumably, hopefully, for Eagles fans' sakes, you're going to have somewhat better play at the quarterback position, because you can't go much lower than it was last year. So, and by the way, Zach would probably not agree with that because he's very good friends with Carson still, but that's the truth. So I think all of those things are, at least he's in a little bit of a better place. And I think he's proven he's still got gas left in the tank. He's had a very good camp.
Since we're on the tight ends, I forgot to ask you this yesterday. Does Tyree Jackson really have a shot to make this team over, say, Richard Rodgers?
I keep him. So one or the other. I'm not letting him go through waivers. And people say you need that spot, and boy, I think that's overblown because game day rosters are 47 to begin with. So you're not having 6 guys active anyway. So it's not like you can't protect somebody on the back end of your roster. The Eagles did it for 2 years with Jordan Mailata. He wasn't ready to play. They just stuck him because they didn't want to risk putting him through waivers. I see some of the same things with Jackson. He's so impressive physically. He can catch. Catch the football naturally. He's got the quarterback background, so he understands route running. He understands what the quarterback wants to see. I think he's going to be a good player. It's probably going to take 2 or 3 years, so it's a long-term project. But yeah, I mean, if I'm Richard Rodgers is an underrated player. He played very well in difficult circumstances last year. But you see this every year. I mean, Richard signs a 1-year contract. He goes on the free agent market. Nobody jumps on him because his age, because he's not fast, because he can't do this, he can't do that. The 1 year he did sign with Washington, then he came back. I mean, nothing against Richard Rodgers, but you got to keep that long-term sort of upside, I would think, if I'm Howie Roseman. So if Zach Ertz is here, yeah, you got to cut Richard Rodgers and keep Tyree. Obviously, if you trade Zach Ertz, then it becomes easier. And you just keep Dallas and Richard and Tyree. And then Jack Stoll has also been impressive as an undrafted rookie at times, but you can get him through waivers because that's just a typical tight end. He doesn't have this eye-popping athleticism or size. You could get him through waivers and get him on the practice squad.
All right, John, two-part question. Number one is about Tyree Jackson, as you're just talking about. I give Jeff credit. He knew exactly how to look this up for me. Greg Ward's been here the last 2 years, and it took until the last game last season, in a game in which the Eagles were, in some people's opinions, attempting to lose to improve their draft status, that they finally got Greg Ward to throw the football downfield. And from the day Ward was activated for the Eagles, when are we going to run the end around? The former quarterback, we could fake him out with that one. Trick play. Got to have it. Didn't do it in 2019. Didn't do it for the first 15 games of 2020. They finally rolled it out there last week, and he completed a pass to Travis Fulgham for 15 yards. How do you get a dual passing play in for Tyree Jackson if he's actually going to be active? I know if the two tight ends are healthy, he's never going to be active. He's going to be one of those guys sitting up in the booth if he's on the roster. Can they work that in? Will Sirianni get that in? I'm rooting for it to get here before it took almost 2 full years to get Greg Ward a chance to throw the pass. The tight end double pass doesn't happen much in the NFL, John. Can Nick Sirianni make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, they can make it happen. Obviously, Tyree got asked the question. He said he hasn't thrown the football at all yet. I mean, ultimately, I get it. Fans get excited about trick plays.
Yes.
Philly special. Trey Burton was a tight end.
Correct.
So, yeah, you can do it. You're not going to live on it. I mean, look at Logan Thomas has made this transition. That's what you're going for. You don't see him throwing the football 10 times a game. I mean, you can't live on trick plays. Might they pull it out somewhere down the line? Yeah, he has a skill set capable of it if you think you can fool somebody. You might see it. But again, he's not going to be ready to play right away in a regular season game. I doubt you're going to break it out in a preseason game because you don't want to show it.
Right.
If you got it in there at some point down the line. But he is a quarterback, former quarterback. He was a highly successful quarterback like Greg Ward. It's a good comparison. Trey Burton was a quarterback in high school, recruited to be a quarterback at first before he made the transition. So a lot of these guys have the ability to at least throw the football if somebody's open and you surprise somebody. Tyree would be in that category. What's most intriguing to me, though, is, and you use Greg Ward as a comparison, this would be like if you had Greg Ward with top-tier athleticism for the wide receiver position. I mean, Tyree Jackson is just he looks like an NBA power forward. He's just so big, so athletic. And again, he's ahead of the game from a catch, a hand standpoint because he just seems to have a natural affinity for it. And then he's ahead of the game from a route running concept because he understands routes from being a quarterback. I just think he's a great prospect. And, he mentioned his old coach who, got him on the train to make the transition. He's a better athlete than Logan Thomas. And you see how good Logan Thomas is. That's your upside. This is a big time prospect. And I don't think people realize it because obviously it's a non-traditional route.
Now, how much do you think a Tyree Jackson, for example, would play Thursday night? You would figure he's going to get a lot of the reps.
Yeah, he's going to play. He's still raw. All the accolades I give him, he still needs a ton of reps at the tight end position. I just don't think you're going to get some of the frills. He's going to play tight end because that's ultimately what they're going to try to make him into. And he needs a lot of reps, especially when it comes to the blocking part of the game. The one advantage there he has is he's 6'7", 250. So he can just get in front of people and accomplish things that others can't. And that's what you want him getting ramped up on, is just what normal tight ends do.
John, you mentioned about bringing Richard Rodgers back. He goes, he comes back, he goes, he comes back. Same thing for Blake Countess yesterday, coming back to the Eagles again. He's been here, he's left. He's been here, he's left. They're bringing him back again. I guess Melifonwu got injured, so they got an injury settlement and let him go. This is just to fill out the preseason, right? We're not counting on Blake Countess being in the Eagle lineup this year, are we?
No, it's completely a camp body type thing. They needed a safety. Remember, Rodney's not ready to go. So they needed that. It is the preseason. You want the 90-man rosters. It is going to be 97 degrees on Thursday. You want as many bodies as possible to get through not only those reps, but the practice reps as well. It's a camp body. Unfortunately, that's one of the dirty parts of this industry. Guys are brought in essentially just to be a camp body. But you're right. Blake's been here so many times. I call it the Julian Vandervelde Award. There's a lot of guys. Casey Tucker. Julian was signed and cut so many times. We used to joke they had him in a cot. He just lived in the back. And they brought him in each and every time. Casey Tucker's been here a lot. You just get comfortable with some guys. They're good guys. They're going to work hard. They're going to do what you ask. But yeah, he's not going to be a part of this team.
I got to give Dave Spadaro credit for this one. Sunday, he asked Nick Sirianni about, how does Jalen Hurts running the football factor into his, and he didn't mention it, obviously, because he works for the Eagles, but his struggles in practice and how he's going to, I guess, counteract it. And Nick, he gave a detailed answer, but I thought it was a whole lot of nothing per se. But overall, John, do you feel when these games start that will mask Hurts' struggles a bit?
Yeah, I mean that's where the RPO part comes in. I think that's going to be a big part of his game, and that's I've talked about this for a lot, and Jody has heard me ask too many people, what can Jalen Hurts do to be the long term answer of this team? I think it's going to be very difficult for him because Jeffrey Lurie, this comes from the top down. And by the way, Jeffrey Lurie is right. He believes you need a top tier passing offense to be a consistent winner in the modern NFL. I agree with him. I think he's completely right. I think Nick realizes for what he has right now, he's got to go in a different direction. And ultimately, those two will clash heads after the season. And the Eagles will say, we got to go get a more um, consistent passing quarterback. That's where I think we are. That's why I think it's a transition year. But, while Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback of this team, Nick is going to try to accentuate the strengths of the player and mask as many deficiencies as possible. And that means RPO, RPO, RPO.
Has the non-success in the playoffs of the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, and I know Lamar Jackson won an MVP, but they haven't advanced in the playoffs. They haven't made a Super Bowl. Forget about winning a Super Bowl. If Lamar Jackson was leading the Ravens with his type of game, their type of game, the Ravens, which isn't 5,000 yards pass heavy, if they had done more, do you think Jeff Lurie would be more amenable to a run heavy offense as a potential to get the Eagles back to the bowl?
Yeah, I do. I think if Lamar Jackson was here, he'd shift his thinking. But I think that's a very, very unique player who's just on a different level from an athleticism standpoint. You're getting to the playoffs. You're having this tremendous success in the regular season. He has an MVP season, and the playoffs haven't shaken out the way you want. But then you go back to the old Andy Reid sentiment. Look, so many things have to happen for you to win a Super Bowl in this league. Everything from injuries. Football people hate to use the term luck, but you got to get lucky at certain points of the season. And Andy's goal was always, let's get to the playoffs. Then maybe the stars align. And I think that's where Baltimore is. They're going to be a playoff contender. And if you get to that position each and every single year and you develop that consistency, I think that would change the level of thinking of Jeffrey Lurie because of the player is so unique. But I think his overall sort of mindset, there aren't a lot of Lamar Jacksons out there. There's one. That's it. You can try to make tortured comparisons. There are no comparisons. So he's a little bit different, but he's an outlier. So where I think Jeffrey is correct is that it's easier to be consistent and from a winning standpoint on this team if you have a top tier passing offense. And I think he's right on that. I kill Jeffrey Lurie a lot. I hear about killing him too much. In this instance, he is 100% correct.
Here's the thing I think is ironic, John. Like throughout most of Jeffrey Lurie's ownership, he had Cunningham, I guess, his first year when he bought the team, and then Ray Rhodes benched him, and then you had mostly Donovan McNabb in the Michael Vick era. So he knows probably more than anybody how the quote unquote running quarterback ultimately does, even though they've had a great deal of success with these guys.
Yeah, well, a couple things. The game has changed drastically, even from Jeffrey first bought the team. I mean, it's a completely different game. I think if you look at Donovan, I don't think it's not having a running quarterback. I don't consider Donovan McNabb a running quarterback. He was a quarterback who could run, and that's fine. I mean, you have the Patrick Mahomes of the world. He's not a running quarterback, but he can run when he needs to run. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best as far as manipulating the pocket. And if you're going to give him something, He's tremendously athletic, and he's going to take it running the football. As you move forward, the game has changed even from 10 years ago, never mind 26 years ago. It's just, and you see it throughout the league. I mean, you see the astronomical numbers that Mahomes and Rodgers and obviously Tom Brady at the top of the list have been able to put up. It's just easier to throw the football because of the changes in the rules of the game. And I think the smart teams understand, look, it's not easy to get players like that, but if you have that top tier passing offense, you're going to win consistently. And that's always been Jeffrey's goal.
John, you referenced it earlier about the Eagles and RPOs for Thursday night. How much do you get the reps in, get the work in, get the practice in, and how much do you want to keep under wraps? Certainly not show the Steelers, even though you don't play them again, or anyone else will be watching the tape of this game after the fact. We haven't talked at all about the defense, and we're going to get our first feel for their new defensive coordinator. We see what they've done in practice, which, oh, by the way, is dominating on almost a daily basis. But they'll be doing against a different team, a bunch of guys in a different colored jersey. How much is Gannon going to show on Thursday night? Is it important for him to put certain principles in place and get them hammered home, even though it's only the first exhibition game? Or is this just still a feel-out period that he doesn't want the rest of the National Football League knowing what his defense is going to do this year?
Yeah, more of the latter. Obviously, these guys, it's CIA level secrecy. They don't want to show too much. It's going to be a lot of vanilla stuff on what he wants to run. And, that's everywhere in the league. I always say nobody's game planning, obviously. You're just this is just an extension of practice. You're trying to work on execution, try to obviously figure out the evaluation of different players and things of that nature. And you try that to put them in positions to see what you need to see from them. But you're not really focused on the opponent. You're focused on yourself, and you're trying to get your own work done. That's sort of the mode early in the preseason. We'll see. Preseason's obviously changed. Maybe that changes a little bit for the coaches. But more majority than most, you might have a dress rehearsal at some point, but this is certainly not going to be it.
Bruce Arians kind of unveiled what the Bucs are going to do this preseason, and they have a different schedule than the Eagles. They only have one joint practice, but I don't know if you heard, John, he pretty much said, we're going to play the first team. Tom Brady's going to play a series or two. Maybe the first team will go in longer. They're going to reevaluate after the joint practice to see how much the first team plays the second game with the Titans. And then the third preseason game, this was kind of eye-opening. He said, well, we might be playing stars a little more there. Could you see the Eagles potentially doing that formula?
I think they should. I think there should be one game where the starters should play. Certainly, and when I say the starters, we all know certain guys that are aging that maybe are a little bit different. But when you talk about the young players, the young starters, and most notably, we're talking about Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I think you got to play him into the third quarter. Whether that's going to be week 3, I assume. Got to be out there because he needs the reps.
All right, John, last thing. What do you got going today? And tomorrow we will not see your smiling face either live and or this great capture picture they have of you. What do you got the next 2 days before the game?
Yeah, I wouldn't say great. Tomorrow's COVID testing, so I got to go through that rigmarole every 2 weeks. Hopefully it stays that way. Otherwise, you can't go anywhere. You can't go to practice. You can't go to games. So you got to stay in the protocol, the rotation. Of course, you know this, Jody, just as the Eagles are going to announce a Deshaun Watson trade at 10:02, whenever that happens. The COVID testing window is exactly the Birds 365 window. So 8 to 10 in the morning. So I could go early and say jump on, but you never know what's going to happen. You never going to know how things are going to shake out. So I don't want to leave you guys in the lurch. But if you need somebody, and if everything goes to plan, I might be available, but I can't guarantee I'm available.
Is there going to be any walkthrough on Wednesday, or is that just a hey, we're prepping for the game on Thursday?
No, they are going to have a walkthrough on Wednesday, but that's closed to the media.
No media.
We're not allowed to see that anyway.
So will you be good now? You get your COVID test tomorrow. You'll be good for the next preseason game. Then you won't have to get it.
It's good for 2 weeks. So I'm day to day, Jeff. I look 24 hours a day. I don't even know when the second preseason. You probably have a better indication from me, man. I get bogged down. I got to look at what day it is, what date. I got to look at it all, man.
All right, so I'm telling you right now, McMullen, if we can get you tomorrow, we'll punch up at some point. If we can't, don't sweat it. Yes, you're expected to be here and ready to rock on Thursday, pal.
I will be there, Jody.
John McMullen, my usual co-host, just jumping on as a guest today. We got